Welcome to this edition of Finweek Money Matters. Remember, this is the show that helps you manage your finances. I'm Demisho Greater. Coming up on the show today, we'll be taking a look at the South African wine industry. Then we'll be discussing the outlook for logistics company Supergroup. Then I'll be joined by a panel of experts to discuss the Reserve Bank's decision on interest rates and what this means for the economy and your investment strategy. But before we get into all of that, as usual, do remember that we welcome your comments, so send them to us. You can send your feedback to moneymatters@abn360.com. But first, let's take a look at the trend of the week. Since 1994, the South African wine industry has grown its exports by more than 700%, combined with improved productivity per hectare and the development of a healthy on-farm tourism industry. The sector looks poised for further growth. But is it capitalizing on its opportunities? Well, joining us from our Cape Town studio to discuss the outlook for this particular industry is Finweek contributor, that's Jacques Claassen. Jacques, lovely to have you on the show. Maybe let's just kick off by talking about what we're doing right. Over the past 20 years, we've seen phenomenal growth in this particular industry.
Well, first of all, it must be said that in 1994, South Africa came from a very proud and long viticultural and vinicultural history. So we had a very good foundation. Then when Nelson Mandela was released, after his release, South Africa wines became the flavor of the decade. It must also be pointed out that in 1994, we started growing from a very low base. But then we did a couple of things that were excellent. We started expanding our vineyards in very exciting areas with new terroir, exciting pockets, and then the quota system was also abolished, and we entered the free market system. Mm-hmm. So given that we invested in new sellers, in new technologies, and the industry started to grow.
Great to see that we've made those particular movements and those developments over the past couple of years. So where do we stand currently with the new wine order? How is South Africa faring? Our competitors, South Africa is number 8 in the world, and the competitors just above us, they're basically Argentina, Chile, and also Australia. And to put it into perspective, Australia is like twice the size of South Africa, but if you look at the stocks to sales ratio, Australia, they're 4 times bigger than South Africa. So Argentina came onto the map in the early 2000s with Malbec, and also because of favorable trade agreements, Chile also made its mark. Mm-hmm. And then Australia is really doing well as well. Jacques, are we still getting the good wine in South Africa? How much of this is being exported and how much of this is consumed locally?
It's interesting to note that locally, South Africa's per capita consumption is fairly low at 6.5 litres, and about the highest in the world is Portugal with 42.5. In 2014, we exported 57%, and 43% was for the local market. In 2014, the local market also grew by 7%.
Jacques, in terms of the export markets, where exactly are we exporting this wine to?
80% of South African wines go to the UK and to Europe, which is a bit under economic pressure at the moment. And our market share in the UK is 10%. And if we are looking at new markets, we are trying to penetrate the Chinese, Asian markets like China and Japan, and also the USA. Because these markets are so massive, we need to approach it on a city basis and try to penetrate them city by city. And in terms of other new growth opportunities in other African countries, we are looking at Ghana and Uganda, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, and yeah, that's about it.
Jacques, if we take a look at the profits that can be made from this wine industry, a very interesting stat that I picked up here. If a bottle of wine retails for about 32 Rand 99, the farmer will only get 53 cents or 2% as a profit. How is this possible? I mean, are farmers able to make a living? How do they survive on such small profits?
Yeah, that's correct. Whether you're a small or a big producer, the same rules apply. So it's all about effective business models, marketing skills, opening up marketing channels, and management skills. So some farmers also choose to diversify by producing, apart from making wine, they produce citrus or they breed racehorses, for example. Yeah, so everyone tries to find his own soft spot.
And now, if we talk about transformation, of course, that's been one of the key themes that we've been seeing in different industries in South Africa. How are we doing in terms of transformation targets?
Yeah, in basically 1997, government started transforming the industry by transforming the KWV that was responsible for the quota system, and we abolished that after the when we entered the free market era. And then they started a South African Wine Industry Trust that was responsible for transformation. And nowadays there are also few brands that's black owned and that's well established. And in terms of land tenure, there are also a couple of good examples. For example, the Bosman Adama Trust, that's in Wellington in the Western Cape, where the landowners combined their forces with the former labourers, and so they are cooperating, and it's co-owned nowadays, so they're doing really well. But obviously a lot can still be done.
Certainly, a lot can still be done, and we can certainly do more to try and even capitalize on this industry further. Jacques, thanks so much for that. That was Jacques Claassen, Finweek contributor. Let's now take a look at this week's Killer Trade.